Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show you the solutions to the arithmetic reasoning subtest of AFQT practice test number 9. Number 1 says Mr. Blake has inherited some musical instruments from his father. They are one violin valued at $3,500, two violin bows each valued at $850, two music stands each valued at $85, one cello valued at $2,300. In addition, Mr. Blake's father has left him a watch valued at $250 and some old sheet music valued at $85 total. What is the value of Mr. Blake's inheritance? So he got a violin for $3,500, two violin bows each valued at $850. So before we can add this to this list, which we're going to combine at the very end with addition, we have to actually multiply this out. That is, we're going to do 850 times 2. 0 times 2 is 0. 5 times 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 8 times 2 is 16. Plus 1 is 17. So this is going to be 1700. Make sure to line up everything. Otherwise, you may make a mistake there. Again, 85 times 2 for the two music stands. 5 times 2 is 0. Carry the 1. 8 times 2 is 16. Plus 1 is 17. So we got 170. One cello valued at $2,300. A watch valued at $250. And sheet music valued at $85. So let's go ahead and add all this up to find out the total of his inheritance. All these zeros plus 5 is just 5. 8 plus 7 is going to be 15, plus 5 is 20, so we have to carry a 2. 3 plus 2 is 5, plus 5 is 10. 7 plus 1 plus 2 is 10, so 10 plus 10 is 20. Carry the 2. We have 3 plus 2 is 5, plus 3 is 8. So we can see the total value of his inheritance is $8,005, which is right there. So that's that one. Again, just work everything out and then add them up accordingly, and that's that one. All right, number 2 says if a particular, let me grab my pen first before I read it. Number 2 says if a particular woman's resting heartbeat is 72 beats per minute and she is at rest for 6.5 hours, how many times will her heart beat during that period of time? So right away you should notice that we have a little bit of a conflict. We're given something in beats per minute, and we're also given another piece of information that's in hours. The easiest way to go about solving this one is to convert 6.5 hours to minutes. So again, we want to convert 6.5 hours to minutes. So we need to know that there are 60 minutes per hour and 30 minutes per half hour. So right away we can see 6.5 is 6 hours and 30 minutes. So we know there's going to be 30 minutes, which I'm just going to pull off to the side here. To figure out how many minutes there are in 6 hours, we take 60, because there's 60 minutes per hour. Multiply that by 6. 0 times 6 is 0. 6 times 6 is 36. So we can see that 6 hours is equivalent to 360 minutes. Half an hour is equivalent to 30 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and add these two. In case you can't see it, to do it mentally, I'm going to work it out off to the side here. 360 plus 30. 0 plus 0 is 0. 6 plus 3 is 9. 3 plus nothing is 3. So in other words, 6.5 hours is the equivalent of 390 minutes. So now we're going to take 390 and multiply it by 72. And this is going to tell us how many times her heart beats if it beats at 72 beats per minute for a total of 6.5 hours. Okay, so take your time as you do this, otherwise you may make a mistake. 0 times 2 is 0. 9 times 2 is 18. Carry the 1. 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7. Add a 0 since we're starting this number. 7 times 0 is 0. 7 times 9 is 63. Carry the 6. 7 times 3 is 21 plus 6 is 27. Let's add. 0 plus 0 is 0. 8 plus 0 is 8. 7 plus 3 is 10. Carry the 1. 7 plus 1 is 8. 2 plus nothing is 2. So we can see that her heart would beat a total of 28,080 times, which is that one. So that was that one. Again, on the ASVAB, nothing's going to be given to you. You may have to do a simple multiplication step before you do the simple addition. So just be prepared for that. Again, the key to doing well on the ASVAB is to be able to do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, including with decimals and fractions. If you can do those things, this test shouldn't be too hard for you. So that said, let's go ahead and look at number 3. Number 3 says a patient's hospice stay costs a quarter as much as a visit to the emergency room. His home nursing costs twice as much as his hospice stay. If his total healthcare bill was $140,000, how much did his home nursing cost? So let's think about this one. There's usually a key to it. And the key is to make things reference one thing. So what I'm going to do is make them all reference emergency room. That way I can actually set up a small formula to solve this one. So we're told hospice, which I'm going to call H, is equivalent to 1/4 of the emergency room cost, which I'm going to call ER. So hospice equals 1/4 of the cost of emergency room. Then we're told home nursing, which I'm going to call HN, costs twice as much as his hospice stay. So if hospice costs 1/4 of ER, then home nursing is going to cost 1/2 of the emergency room visit, because 1/4 times 2 is 1/2, and that leaves us with ER is just the ER cost. Okay, so as you can see, I have everything referencing the emergency room visit. So now with that done, I can go ahead and set up a small formula to solve this one. I got 1/4 ER plus 1/2 ER plus 1 ER equals 140,000. Okay. Let's add all these up. And I put this 1 in front of ER because technically it is just 1. But let's add all these up. 1/4 and 1/2 is 3/4. 3/4 plus 1 is 1 3/4. ER equals 140,000. Now, I don't like working with mixed numbers, so I'm going to convert 1 3/4 to just a improper fraction. To do that, I'm going to do 1 times 4, which is 4, plus 3 is going to be 7/4. So I'm going to make this be 7/4 ER equals 140,000. Now I can go ahead and multiply both sides by the reciprocal, or divide it out. Actually, I'm going to divide it out to get the cost of ER by itself. That's going to look like this. It's going to cross out. So this leaves me, and let me get some more space here. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Let's see if I can undo that. This is 1/4 ER This is 1/2 ER. This is home nursing. And this is just hospice. So let me find some space I can do this in. So I have ER equals 140,000 divided by 7/4. Now that is to say I have a whole number divided by a fraction. To work this out, you follow this rule: keep, change, flip. That is to say I'm going to do 140,000 times, so we go from division to multiplication. So we keep 140,000 the same. We change it from division to multiplication. So we did keep, we did change, and then we flip this fraction in the bottom to be 4/7. Okay, so that's what that looks like to solve for ER. Right here, you should be able to notice that you can reduce this before you go any further. 7 goes into 7 one time. 7 goes into 140,000. Well, 7 goes into 14 two times, and you can just bring up these zeros accordingly. So this becomes 20,000 times 4 equals 80,000. Okay? And what this says is the cost to visit the ER room was $80,000. Now, the question is, how much did home nursing cost? Well, as we set up this problem, we let home nursing equal 1/2 of emergency room. 1/2 of 80,000 is going to be 40,000. Okay? So that's that one. Again, this problem is fairly challenging because you do have to understand that in order to solve it, you have to create a little formula, and it has to reference the same variable in order to be able to solve it. And in this case, we actually ended up running into a mixed number, which we had to convert from a mixed number to a fraction. Then we had to use the rules for dividing fractions to solve for ER, and then we had to go back to our variables that we set up and actually solve accordingly. So this one's fairly challenging. And again, there are multiple ways to solve that one. You could have let everything reference the hospice stay, or you can let everything reference the home nursing cost. It's really up to you as to how you want to do that one, but that's one of the methods. All right, question 4 says Izzy is going to buy a tent that originally cost $220 and is now 30% off. What is the sale price of the tent? So whenever I see discount questions, I always like to think of them like this. SP, sale price, equals original cost minus discount. If you use this formula, this little shorthand, you'll get it right every time. Again, sale price equals original cost minus discount. So we know what our original cost is. It's $220. To solve it, all we have to do is find the discount, and we know it's 30% off. So I'm going to do 220 times 0.3, which is the equivalent of 30%. We're multiplying a whole number by a decimal. The trick is to move this decimal one time to make that decimal a whole number, and then to add this one decimal place back into the left at the end. So in reality, I'm doing 220 times 3, albeit with one decimal place to shift back in at the end. 0 times 3 is 0, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 3 is 6. Shift our one decimal back in, and we can see that the discount is going to be $66. So in order to find the sale price, the final sale price, we do 220 minus 66. 0 minus 6 we can't do. We have to borrow. This becomes 1. This becomes 10. 10 minus 6 is 4. 1 minus 6 we can't do. We have to borrow. This becomes 1. This becomes 11. 11 minus 6 is 5. 1 minus nothing is 1. So we can see that the sale price of the tent is going to be $154, which is right there. Okay, so that's that one. All right, question 5 says Laura has the following regular test scores in her economics class: 78, 94, 64, 81, and 83. On her final exam, she scored a 90. When determining students' final averages, the professor drops the lowest regular test score and then counts the remaining regular test as 50% of the final average. The final exam counts as the other 50% of the total average. What will Laura's final average be? So what this says is her final grade, I'm going to call that FG, is going to be her regular grade plus her final average divided by 2. And this should be regular grade average. So her final grade in the course is going to be her regular grade average plus her final average divided by 2. That said, to find her regular grade average, we have to find the average of all of her regular test scores, albeit minus her lowest test scores. We can see here are her regular grade test scores. The professor drops the lowest, which is 64. So this is going to be 78 plus 94 plus 81 plus 83. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. So we divide this by 4 to find her regular grade average. Let's go ahead and do the addition off to the side. We have 94, 83, 81, and 78. 4 plus 8 is 12. Plus 4 is 12 plus 4 is 16. Carry the 1. 9 plus 8 is 17. Plus 8 is 18. And then 7 plus 8 is 15. So let's see. Let me take my time here. I don't want to make a mistake. 9 plus 8 is 17. 7 plus 8 is 15. And then we add the 1. So this is going to be 18 plus 15. 5 plus 8 is going to be 13. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. So this is going to be 336. And that's going to be regular grade average equals 336 divided by 4. So now we got to do this. 336 divided by 4. 4 goes into 3. It doesn't. It's too small. 4 goes into 33 8 times without going over. 4 times 8 is 32. Subtract. 33 minus 32 is 1. Drop down this 6. 4 goes into 16 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16, so there's no remainder. So her regular grade average is 84. So now we can actually come up here to figure out what her final grade average is going to be. Again, we know to figure that out, it's going to be her regular grade average, which is going to be 84, plus her final score, which is a 90, divided by 2. Let's work that out. So basically, to do this one, you're finding two averages, which is a little tedious, so bear with me. 84 and 90. 4 plus 0 is 4. 8 plus 9 is 17. So this is going to be 174 divided by 2. Let's do that off to the side here. 174 divided by 2. 2 goes into 1. It doesn't. It's too small. 2 goes into 17 8 times without going over. 8 times 2 is 16. Subtract. 17 minus 16 is 1. Drop down this 4. 2 goes into 14 7 times without going over. 2 times 7 is 14, so we can see there's no remainder. Therefore, we know the answer is going to be 78. Therefore, or 87. Therefore, we know her final grade average is going to be an 87. And again, I had to find her regular grade average first, and then I had to combine her regular grade average plus her score on the final, and divide that by 2. Again, not that easy, but very doable. And again, as I may have mentioned already, this practice test is fairly challenging. So if you're doing well on the ASVAB, you'll see tough questions like this. But otherwise, do your best on this section. Most of the questions are manageable. But that said, some of these questions are pretty complicated. Number 6 says a study showed that 600,000 women die each year in pregnancy and childbirth, 1/5 more than scientists previously estimated. How many such deaths did the scientists estimate? So we're told that 600,000 represents or is equal to 1/5 more than scientists represented. So that's going to be X, which is how much they originally estimated, plus, and 1/5 is the same as 20%. Okay? And if you didn't see that, you can do it like this. 1 divided by 5. Again, all fractions are the same as long division. 1 over 5 is the same as 1 divided by 5. How many times does 5 go into 1? It doesn't. It's too small. You have to add a 0. By adding that 0, you bring up a decimal. 5 goes into 10 2 times without going over. 5 times 2 is 10. Subtract that out. So that's how we get 1/5 being the equivalent of 20% or 0.2. So let's get back to this. 600,000 is equal to the scientist's original estimate, which I'm going to represent as X or 1X, if that's easier to see, plus 0.2X. And this is the equivalent of original estimate plus 20% more than the original estimate. Okay? So that, let's simplify this. 600,000 equals 1X plus 0.2x is the same as 1.2x. Again, we're solving for x, so we're going to divide both sides by 1.2. This crosses out, we're left with x equals 600,000 divided by 1.2. Now, there's a trick to doing this math, and I'm going to show it to you that way we don't waste a lot of time doing long division. When you do long division, the trick is to have no decimal places. And let me set up the long division so you can see what I'm talking about. So again, all fractions can be regarded as long division. So this is the same as 600,000 divided by 1.2. And the key to doing this problem is to recognize that you can't have a decimal outside the division bracket. So you have to shift this decimal one time this way to make 1.212. When you shift that decimal, you have to add a 0 here. Okay? And that's because technically there's a decimal right here. If you shift it one time right there, you have to add a 0. And that's just to keep the proportionality of these two. So in reality, what I'm doing is this. And this is now 6 million divided by 12 instead of 600,000 divided by 1.2. So what I want to do is try to find a quick way to do this. I know 12 goes into 60 5 times, and now all I have to do is drag up these zeros. So I know 12 times 500,000 will get me 6 million, which is the answer right there with no remainder. Okay, so again, this one is going to be 500,000. In other words, the scientists originally estimated that 500,000 women die each year during childbirth and pregnancy, which is 20% less than what the actual number of 600,000 was. Okay, so that was that one. Again, not easy. You had to use some basic algebra skills to set up the problem, and then you had to be pretty good in terms of doing long division with decimals to solve that problem accordingly. But that said, if you've made it through AFQT practice tests 1 through 8, that should not be too hard for you. All right, question 7 says, local firefighters are doing a Fill the Boot fundraiser. Their goal is to raise $3,500. After 3 hours, they have raised $2,275. Which statement below is accurate? So we have 35. Oh, let me get rid of this. We have 2,275 divided by 3,500. And we have to find which of these statements is true. They have raised 35% of their goal. They have 720 of their goal left to raise. They have raised less than half their goal. They have raised more than 3/4 of their goal. Okay? The easiest way to do this one is to actually reduce this to figure out, what this is in terms of the criteria here. So what I'm going to do is actually use the rule of proportionality. So I'm just going to let this be 35. I'm going to figure out what half of 35 is, what 3/4 of 35 is, because in doing so, I can eliminate a lot of these answer choices. So in other words, x over 35, what's that going to be in terms of 1/2? So we'll cross multiply. 2x equals 35. Divide both sides by 2. This crosses out. We're left with x equals 35 over 2. Let's work that off to the side. 2 goes into 3 one time without going over. 2 times 1 is 2. Subtract. 3 minus 2 is 1. Drop down this 5. 2 goes into 5. 15. 7 times. 2 times 7 is 14. Subtract. 15 minus 14 is 1. Add a 0. 2 goes into 10 5 times. So we can see that 1/2 would be 17.5 over 35. And if I were to extrapolate that, that would be 1750 over 35. Okay? They have raised less than half their goal. Well, 1750 over 3,500 would be half their goal. They've raised 2275. Okay? So we know they've raised more than half, which means they've raised more than 35%. So now all we have to figure out is if they've raised more than 3/4 of their goal. If they haven't, then we know this is the right answer choice. So again, I'm going to set this one up just like this one. X over 35 equals 3/4. Again, this is saying what number over 35 will be equivalent to 3/4. So we're going to cross multiply. 4x equals 35 times 3. Let's work that off to the side. 35 times 3. 5 times 3 is 15. Carry the 1. 3 times 3 is 3 plus 1 is 10. So this is 4x equals 105. Divide both sides by 4. This crosses out. We're left with x equals 105 over 4. Again, all fractions are the same as division. 105 divided by 4. Let's work that out. 4 goes into 10 2 times without going over. 4 times 2 is 8. 10 minus 8 is 2. Drop down this 5. 4 goes into 25. 6 times without going over. 4 times 6 is 24. Subtract 25 minus 24 is 1. Add a 0. 4 goes into 10 two times without going over. So I can see that this is going to be 26 point something. So as we did right here, let's go ahead and see what 3/4 is equal to. Again, this is 26.2 over 35. Again, I want to make this the equivalent of 3,500, so I have to add 2 zeros. When I add those zeros, I have to shift this decimal place twice and add a 0. So if they had raised 3/4, more than 3/4 of their goal, it would be greater than 2,620. They've only raised 2,275, so we know they have not raised more than 3/4 of their goal. And by process of elimination, I know they've raised 720 of their goal. Okay, or they have 720 of their goal left to raise. Again, a lot of fraction work for this one, so not an easy problem again. Okay. Number 8 says a dosage of certain medication is 12 cc's per 100 pounds. What is the dosage for a patient who weighs 175 pounds? So this is 12 cc's per 100 pounds. What is the dosage, which I'm going to represent as X for 175 pounds? To do this one, we just cross multiply. That is, we do 100 times X and 12 times 175. So this gives me 100x equals 175 times 12. Let's work this off to the side. 175 times 12. 5 times 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 2 times 7 is 14 plus 1 is 15. 2 times 1 is just 2. Oh, I had to carry a 1 there too. So that's going to be 350. Sorry about that. Add a 0 since we're starting this number. 5 times 1 is 5. 7 times 1 is 7. 1 times 1 is 1. Let's add. 0 plus 0 is 0. 5 plus 5 is 10. Carry the 1. 7 plus 3 is 10 plus 1 is 11. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So we can see 100x equals 2100. Let's divide both sides by 100 to get x by itself. This crosses out. We're left with x equals 2100 over 100. Now the trick is to just cross out zeros. X equals 21 over 1, which is just the same as 21. So this one is just 21 cc's. Okay, so this is a pretty challenging problem as well. It says body mass index is equal to weight in kgs divided by height in meters squared. A man who weighs 64.8 kilograms has a BMI of 20. How tall is he? So again, we're told BMI is equal to weight in kgs divided by height squared. We know his BMI is 20. It's given to us in the problem. We're told his weight is 64.8. We want to figure out how tall he is. So to do this one, I'm going to actually rearrange this so it's a little easier. Specifically, I'm going to divide both sides by, or multiply both sides by h squared. So this is going to cross out. This will give me h squared times 20 equals 64.8. Oh, I'm getting a little ahead of myself there. Okay, h squared times 20 equals 64.8. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 20 to get h squared by itself. This crosses out. I'm left with h squared equals 64.8 over 20. Before I can solve for h, I'd like to reduce this. So I'm going to do, and again, all fractions can be regarded as long division. I'm going to do 64.8 divided by 20. Since the decimal's inside the division bracket, I don't have to worry about moving anything. 20 goes into 64 3 times without going over. 20 times 3 is 60. We're going to subtract 64 minus 60 is 4. Drop down this 8. And again, you just want to lift this decimal place right up into place. 20 goes into 48 2 times without going over. 20 times 2 is 40. We're going to subtract 48 minus 40 is 8. Add a 0. 20 goes into 80 4 times. 4 times 20 is 80, so we can see there's no remainder there. So we can see that h squared is equal to 3.24. Let me bring that up over here so we have more room to work with. H squared equals 3.24. Now I'm going to take the square root of both sides to solve for h. That crosses this squared out. I'm left with h equals the square root of 3.24. Okay? In other words, we want to find out what two numbers we can multiply by each other to get us 3.24. Again, it's going to look like this. This number times this number equals 3.24. 0.9 times 0.9 is 1.8, so that's too small. 2 times 2 would give you 4, so that's too big. 3 times 3 would give you 9, so that's too big. Therefore, the only other logical answer choice would be 1.8. So just by process of elimination, I know this is 1.8. If I do 1.8 times 1.8, if I were to work that out, you would see that it would get me 3.24. Okay? So that's that one. If you really couldn't figure out what the square root of 3.24 is, you can do 0.9 times 0.9, 2.16 times 2.16, and so on until you figure out which one worked. But then again, if you're very good with mental math and you can make estimations, 2 times 2 is 4, too big. 3 times 3 is 9, too big. 0.9 times 0.9, 1.8, too small. 1.8 times 1.8, got it. Move on. Again, don't get bogged down with this math. Use your answer choices to guide you in the right direction. Again, the ASVAB is a test of speed, so you have to be comfortable using your answer choices to help you solve problems quickly and accurately. Okay. Number 10 says, if a vehicle is traveling through a desert at an average of 90 kilometers an hour, how many meters will have traveled after 5 hours and 30 minutes? So right away, we should recognize that we're dealing with distance, rate, and time, which means we're going to be using the distance formula, that is d equals r times t, to solve this one. So basically, I want to identify what I have in the distance formula and what I'm trying to solve for. We're told there's an average speed of 90 kilometers per hour, so that's our rate. We're going to plug that in right there. We're given a time of 5 hours and 30 minutes, so we're going to plug that in for our time. And instead of plugging it in as 5:30, we're going to do 5.5. Again, that's 5.5 hours, or 5.5 hours. And again, we're asked to find how many meters it will have traveled. So that's going to be our distance. That's what we're solving for. So again, distance equals rate, 90 kilometers an hour, times time. Again, 5.5 hours. So let's solve this. And I'm going to work this off to the side. 90 times 5.5. Again, you can't multiply a whole number by a decimal. Instead, you have to shift this decimal place once to make 5.555. And at the end, you're going to shift the decimal back in one time. So this, in reality, is 90 times 55, albeit with one decimal to shift back in. 0 times 5 is 5. 9 times 5 is 45. Add a 0 since we're starting this number. 5 times 0 is 0. 9 times 5 is 45. Let's add. Let's see. Make sure I'm doing this right. Oops, I've made a mistake. Let me start that over. Five times 0 is 0. 9 times 5 is 45. And again, as you can tell, the ASVAB is pretty tedious, so it's not uncommon, especially if you don't practice a lot, that you're going to make mistakes just due to being tired as you work out these problems, which have not been very easy. So we're starting 5, we drop down to 0. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 5 is, or 5 times 9 is 45. Let's add. 0 plus 0 is 0. 5 plus 0 is 5. 4 plus 5 is 9. And 4 plus nothing is 4. So we got distance equals 4,950. Oh, see? I even made another mistake. Shift your one decimal back in right there. So this is 495, not 4,950. I forgot to shift the decimal back in. Now, you may look at your answer choices and say, well, I don't see this as an answer choice. Did I do this right? Well, take a look. And I did this intentionally. We're being asked to figure out, to find how many meters it traveled, but we're given its average speed in kilometers. So what this says is the distance traveled in 5.5 hours is 495 kilometers, and our answer has to be in meters. There are 1,000 meters per, per 1 kilometer. Again, that's the metric system. Kilo means 1,000, so there are 1,000 meters per 1 kilometer. So to find how many meters there are in 495 kilometers, we do 495 times 1,000. Fortunately enough, there's a trick to this. You would simply shift this decimal, which is technically right there, by how many zeros there are in 1,000. There's 3 zeros in 1,000, so we'd shift that 1, 2, 3 times, and we can see that would give us 495,000. In other words, traveling at an average speed of 90 kilometers per hour for 5.5 hours, you'll go 495 kilometers, which is the equivalent of 495,000 meters. Okay, number 11 says a bag contains 105 jelly beans, 23 white, 23 red, 14 purple, 26 yellow, 19 green. What is the probability of selecting either a yellow or green jelly bean? So that's going to be probability of selecting yellow or green is equal to 26 plus 19 over 105. Again, there's 105 jelly beans in the bag. We want to find out what the odds of picking either a yellow, of which there's 26, or green, of which there are 19. So we just add those together and divide it by 105. So this becomes 26 plus 19. 6 plus 9 is 15. Carry the 1. 2 plus 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. This is the same as 45 over 105. We don't see that as our answer choice, so we know we're going to have to reduce this. I know that all numbers that end in 5 are divisible by 5, So what I'm going to do is reduce this by a factor of 5. 45 divided by 5 is 9. 105 divided by 5 I have to work out. 5 goes into 10 2 times, 5 goes into 1 time, so this is going to be 9 over 21. You should recognize that 9 and 21 share a common factor of 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 21 divided by 3 is 7. Therefore, I know the odds of picking a red or green jelly bean are 3 over 7. So that's that one. All right, number 12 says, on the same latitude, Company E travels east at 35 miles per hour and Company F travels west at 15 miles per hour. If the two companies start out 2,100 miles apart, how long will it take them to meet? So I'm going to need a compass to do this one so I don't mess it up when I'm explaining it. Got north and south, everyone knows those. East is always over here, west is over here. So I'm going to do a little diagram here. And again, they're on the same latitude. You can always regard latitude as line. Company E, which is over here, I'm just going to call it CE, is traveling this way at 35 miles per hour. Company F is over here, again, on the same line or latitude. It's traveling this way at 15 miles per hour, and this Company F. Question is, how long will it take them to meet if they're 2,100 miles apart? This problem, it turns out, is pretty easy if you think about it this way. We're going to combine their rates. So I'm going to call this company G. And I'm going to say Company G, and that's a bad straight line. Let me fix that. Company G is traveling the same 2,100 miles, albeit at a combined rate of 35 and 15 miles per hour. So 35 plus 15. 5 plus 5 is 10. Carry the 1. 3 plus 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So Company G is going this one direction, albeit at 50 miles per hour. That is, it's going at a combined rate of these two companies. So as long as you think of these two companies traveling toward each other as a separate company going the same distance, albeit at a combined rate of both companies, you'll get the same answer. So let's just do the math now. Again, you should recognize that you have all the elements of the distance formula, namely distance equals rate times time. We know, and let me write that down here, we know we're traveling a total distance of 2,100 miles. We know the rate, in this case, is a combined rate of 35 plus 15, or 50 miles. And we want to figure out how long it's going to take them to meet, so we're going to leave time blank. Let's divide both sides by 50 since we're solving for t. Cross this out. And just to save yourself some time, let's cross one of these zeros out. So this is going to be t equals 210 divided by 5. Anything that ends in a 0 or a 5 is divisible by 5, so I know this is going to be a pretty easy division problem to do. And again, all fractions can be regarded as division problems, namely 210 divided by 5, so let's work that off to the side. 5 goes into 21 4 times without going over. 5 times 4 is 20. 21 minus 20 is 1. Drop down this 0. 5 goes into 10 2 times. 5 times 2 is 10, so there's no remainder. So we know our time is going to be 42 hours, which is right there. Again, whenever you have two separate entities, traveling toward or away from each other, always combine them into a single rate, and you'll be able to solve these problems pretty easily. Otherwise, you might, skip that question because you don't know how to do it. Number 13 says a uniform requires 4 square yards of cloth to produce uniforms for 84,720 troops. How much cloth is required? So this is a simple multiplication problem, albeit with big numbers. It's just trying to see how comfortable you are with big numbers. So we have 84,720 times 4. Let's work this out. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 2 is 8. 7 times 4 is 28. Carry the 2. 4 times 4 is 16 plus 2 is 18. Carry the 1. 8 times 4 is 32 plus 1 is 33. So as we can see that we're going to need a total of 338,880 square yards of cloth for 84,720 troops. Okay? So just a simple multiplication problem there, albeit with big numbers, just to try to throw you off. Okay, number 14 says water is coming into a tank 3 times as fast as it's going out. After 1 hour, the tank contains 11,400 gallons of water. How fast is the water coming in? So again, after an hour, we know there's 11,400 gallons of water in the tank. We know water is going in 3 times as quickly as it's going out. Okay, so just like that, I wrote a formula for this problem. Again, after an hour, there's 11,400 gallons of water in the tank. It's coming in 3 times as fast as it's going out, so that I'm going to represent that as x minus, or 3x minus x. This is in, this is out. So let's go ahead and solve for x accordingly. 11,400 equals 3x minus x is 2x. Let's divide both sides by 2. Cross this out. We're left with x equals 11,400 divided by 2. Let's work this off to the side. Again, all fractions can be regarded as long division. Specifically, this is going to be 11,400 divided by 2. 2 goes into 11 5 times without going over. 5 times 2 is 10. We're going to subtract. 11 minus 10 is 1. Drop down this 4. Drop down the 0. So this is going to be 400. 2 goes into 14 7 times, and just bring up those 2 zeros. So 2 goes into 1,400 700 times with no remainder. Now x represents the speed of the water, but that said, we know the water's coming in is equivalent to 3x. So we're not done with this problem. We're going to take 5,700, multiply it by 3. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 0 is 0. 7 times 3 is 21. Let's get rid of that. 21, carry the 2. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2 is 16, 17. So we can see that the water is going into the tank at 17,100 gallons per hour. And it's actually leaving the tank at 5,700 gallons per hour. Okay? And if you subtract these two, you would get your 11,400. So that's that one. All right, number 15 says Ron is half as old as Sam, who is 3 times as old as Ted. The sum of their ages is 55. How old is Ron? So since we're solving for Ron, I'm going to let all these other people reference Ron, which will help me set up a basic algebra problem to solve this one. So Sam is twice as old as Ron, so Sam equals 2R. Again, we're told Ron is half as old as Sam, so that means Sam is two times as old as Ron. And we're told that Sam is 3 times as old as Ted, so Sam is equal to 3 times as old as Ted. So now we got to convert this to be in terms of R. If Sam is 3t and Sam equals 2R, that means, let me just think about this one real quick. Sam is 3t. So what I'm going to do is plug in 2R right here for 3t, which means that Ted, and let's divide both sides by 3, that means Ted is equal to 2/3 the age of Ron, 2/3 the age of Ron. So now that they're all in terms of Ron, again, Ted is 2/3 Ron, Sam is 2 times as old as Ron, and Ron is just equal to Ron. Let's add these up. We got R plus 2R plus 2/3 R equals 55. Again, I took all of them and converted them to be in terms of Ron's age, which is just R. Let's add these up. Again, there's an imaginary 1 there. 2 plus 1 is 3R plus 2/3, so this is going to be 3 and 2/3 R equals 55. Again, we're solving for R, but we have a mixed number here. I don't like dealing with mixed numbers, so I'm going to convert this to a improper fraction, and to do that, I'm going to work that off to the side here. 3 times 3 is 9 plus 2, 9, 10, 11. This is the same as 11/3. So this is 11/3 R equals 55. I'm going to divide both sides by 11/3. This will get rid of this. I'm left with R equals 55 divided by 11/3. Now, in order to do 55 divided by 11/3, I'm going to have to make use of the keep, change, flip rule. That is to say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to keep 55 the same. I'm going to change this from division to multiplication. So this is going to be 55 times. Again, I kept 55 the same. I changed from multiplication or division to multiplication, and I'm going to flip this fraction in the denominator from 11/3 to 3/11. Okay. Now all I have to do is really cross multiply. Anything that's a whole number you can place over 1 to make it a fraction. Again, we're just going to cross multiply. Before I do that though, I'm just going to reduce this by a factor of 11. 11 goes in 11 one time. 11 goes into 55 5 times. So now we're just going to cross multiply. 5 times 3 is 15 over 1 times 1, which is 1. Anything divided by 1 is itself. 15 divided by 1 is 15. So I know this is just going to be 15. And we can see that Ron's age is going to be 15. Another way to have done this one is to simply have plugged in all the numbers and guessed. For example, you could have done this. Ron is 15. He's half as old as Sam, which means Sam is 30. And Sam is 3 times as old as Ted. So I know TED is going to be 10. So that's going to be 15 plus 30, which is 45 plus 10, which is 55. So you could have guessed that way by plugging in all these numbers, or you could have done it the algebraic way. Either way, these problems are difficult because, they're basically brain teasers. But you do see stuff like that on the ASVAB. All right, number 16. A Boeing 747 burns approximately 1 gallon of fuel for every second flown. If the flight from New York to Beijing, China is 13.5 hours, approximately how many gallons of fuel will be used during this trip? So again, we got to convert 13.5 hours to seconds, and that will give us our answer. Again, there are 60 minutes in every hour, and there are 60 seconds per minute. If you do the math, 60 times 60, and you should know this, that will give you 3,600 seconds per hour. Half of 3,600 is 1,800. So there are 3,600 seconds per hour and 1,800 seconds per half hour. In light of that, we can go ahead and solve this one. Again, we already know that this 0.5, or half an hour, is going to be 1,800 seconds. We just got to figure out what 3,600 times 13 is. Again, because there are 3,600 seconds per hour, we're going for 13 hours. 0 times 3 is 0. 0 times 3 is 0. 6 times 3 is 18. Carry the 1. 3 times 3 is 9. Plus 1 is 10. Add a 0 since we're starting this number. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 6 is 6. 1 times 3 is 3. Let's add. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. 8 plus 0 is 8. 6 plus 0 is 6. 3 plus 1 is 4. So this is 13 hours. We still have to tack on our 1,800 seconds there. So this is going to be 46,800 plus 1,800. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. 8 plus 8 is 16. Carry the 1. 6 plus 1 is 7. Plus 1 is 8. 4 plus nothing is 4. So we can see that this is going to be 48,600 gallons. And that's it for this practice test. Hope you found it helpful. I struggled with questions in this practice test when I created it. So this is a pretty challenging practice test. If you can get 70% of these right, you should do pretty well on the ASVAB. But on that note, I'll go ahead and